Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch is made possible in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York.
Hi, I'm Heather Fernstrom.
And I'm Jennifer Stevens, and we're co-founders of Alliance Global Advisors.
And we're happy to be here today at the Pearl House to shoot an episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch.
Welcome to Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Shine.
And I'm co-host Mitch Berkey.
And welcome. And Mitch, guess what?
I know what.
We have two amazing guests today, too.
We are so pleased to have in the Elevator Pitch studio Heather Fernstrom and Jennifer Stevens,
co-founders of Alliance Global Advisors. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So let's just get started. Why don't you just, top line, why don't you give us a little idea about Alliance Global Advisors?
Go for it.
So Heather and I launched Alliance Global Advisors in April of 2020, April 1st, 2020. So impeccable timing, April Fool's Day, and the onset of the global health pandemic.
Timing is everything.
I actually think we share a work anniversary, correct?
March 31st. Pretty close.
Okay.
Back to back.
Did you
back to back.
intentionally avoid April 1st?
I have a whole different story, but yes, I did. I wanted you to have it for
We
yourself.
went for it. Thank
I
you.
wanted you to have that all by yourself.
In retrospect, it worked out for us.
But you took
okay?
it on. You took it on.
We took it on. In retrospect, it's also a beautiful time to launch a business. And so Heather and I had been talking about launching Alliance for about 6 to 8 months prior to that. And we had this vision of creating an environment for investment managers to have some independent advisory services. We knew that the LPs and the consultants, they kind of cornered a certain area of the market, but we felt in order to compete for capital that GPs deserved a bit of information as well to better compete.
And Heather, you were working together at Townsend Group when this was all being framed out.
Way back when. We worked together at Townsend Group starting, I think, in 2007, 2008.
Also good timing.
So, right, exactly. I mean, we seem to have impeccable timing. Yeah. So I personally launched my institutional real estate career right before the global financial crisis. And then, we launched Alliance basically right into COVID. So,
gosh, what's next?
But a lot of the background of the Alliance, I think, also came from some of my experience working with various investment managers internally. And
you were a capital raiser.
I was, and led a couple different capital markets teams. And what I found is coming from the Townsend model and then becoming an investment manager, these managers were making very important strategic decisions for their firms and maybe not have the whole wherewithal of how the investors are making the decisions or how they're working alongside their advisors, how the consultants were taking the information that they were gathering from the managers and using it to service their client base. And so Jen and I spoke about this concept of let's create a place where these managers can go and have some feedback that's not judged, that's not going to be used against them in a due diligence process at a later date. And so we wanted to make sure that they had an independent voice that they could go to And so that was really kind of one of the main reasons and the backbone of our story here at Alliance.
So let's just kind of go from the beginning, Townsend, because a lot of people may not know exactly what Townsend does and how you honed your skills. So why don't you talk a little bit about it's not a commercial for that group, but how you got your skills from them.
And Jennifer, you started there right out of school, is that correct?
I did. I started there in 2004, so a couple years before Heather joined, and I spent 17 years there. So I was there for a long time and got quite the education in the institutional investment space within real estate. And so
What drew you to Townsend when you were at school? How did it come on your radar? And
it came on my radar because I wanted to go to law school. My intention after graduating from Ohio University was to go right to law school. I took the LSAT. I did not get into my stretch schools, and so I thought I'd take a gap year. And one of my professors at OU knew the founders of the firm, Terry and Kevin, and made an introduction and said, this is a great place to go. And then I spent most of my career there.
interesting. And Heather, you were already a veteran there, Jen, and you joined, as you said, in 07, 08?
Right after I was wrapping up grad school at University of Denver. Townsend had a Denver office, and one of my professors made an introduction to also the founders of Townsend. And so I flew out to Cleveland, and I think part of my interview was with Jen as well. And several members that we have of the team today. We have quite a few Townsend alums within our own team today. And so I worked in the Denver office for about 6 years.
So just kind of, it's a journey as we're talking about. What kind of skills that you kind of honed there? We know what you were going to get into your investment management world, but what kind of skills did you bring to this idea of Alliance?
Well, I think that for anybody that wants to be in this real estate investment space, joining a consulting organization or an investor organization is a great place to learn. It's really a position of privilege to be involved with an organization like that sees all the best minds in the industry. You're fed a lot of information and research from top investment management organizations, and with that information, you're supposed to make informed investment decisions on behalf of your clients. And so as a consultant, you represent the LPs, you represent the limited partners and commingled funds and the investors that are investing in real estate and real assets globally. And for me, that was, that experience really shapes our business today. Everything we do at Alliance has the partner in mind, the investor in mind. How will the investor perceive a particular strategy? What are the risks that the investor will point out in this investment strategy? What does this GP need to be thinking about from an organizational positioning perspective or a succession planning perspective in order to compete for capital? And so a lot of our clients today use us as a sounding board before they go into an investor or a consultant meeting, just so that they're hearing questions first from our team in order to make put their best foot forward. So my position within Townsend, I was on the advisory side of Townsend's business. And for those of you that don't know Townsend, I don't know that any of your viewers don't know Townsend by this point, but largest global real asset consultant in the world and one of the first. And so they have both an advisory business and a discretionary business. And over the course of my career there, I spent most of my time on the advisory side, which meant my clients were city and state pension plans, fire and police pension plans, foundations, endowments, a couple of private wealth investors, and learning about all of their different needs, I think really helps to inform our viewpoint and really speaks to how we curated our team at Alliance as well.
This episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch is sponsored in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York. Life at Pearl House shines brightly. It's where smart design meets condominium quality finishes. Pearl House, the beauty of smart living.
Commercial real estate is evolving, bringing new challenges and new opportunities. At Commonwealth Land Title National Commercial Services New York, we provide trusted guidance, deep commercial experience, and seamless coordination on complex transactions grounded in local insight and backed by national resources. Commonwealth Land Title, NCS New York, trusted to move your most complex transactions forward.
So Heather, when you joined, coming from your investment background, did you immediately click, the two of you? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I was in the Denver office. I was the only analyst at that time, our associate in the Denver office. So I'd go back and forth to Cleveland, and we were a similar peer set, and so we spent quite a bit of time together in the Cleveland office. And then Jen moved to San Francisco, and then we did kind of the Denver to San Francisco and back and forth to Cleveland quite a bit as well. So Jen ran a lot of the West Coast clients. My clients were disseminated throughout the U.S. But as Jen was mentioning, just having that, LP lens and really crafting the LP's investment strategy and going through a period where, especially kind of going into the GFC and coming out of the GFC, and having, call it like an in-house view of how these investors were shaping their portfolio coming out of such a disastrous time period. Understanding, the process they were going through of trying to make decisions. One of the biggest things was not putting additional good money after, some of these bad deals or corrupt things that were going on during that time period. And being side by side and a teammate during that time period of the LPs, and that type of thought process and way in which the LPs were going about, their decision making is something we try to bring to our clients of this is how they think about things. This is the problems that they're trying to overcome within their own portfolio. These are some of the challenges that they have to go within their own internal processes. And here's how you should be mindful of those processes and make their, essentially let's make their job easier.
So Jen, going back to what you said you sit with your clients and you talk to them about what the LPs are, what their needs are, what their wants are, how to present them to them. So you kind of put together a boot camp, from what I understand.
Yeah, we think we have a pretty good playbook for how to become a best-in-class investment manager. And when we launched Alliance, we felt that our services and our work would be most impactful to emerging managers or those who had yet to raise institutional capital. And so we built our business with that in mind. But since we launched the business, and at the beginning, I think we did attract some smaller operators, developers that had not launched commingled funds or raised institutional capital. Today, we've advised almost $1 trillion, over $1 trillion of assets under management across our cumulative client base. And that just speaks to the fact that our clients now are both very small and very, very large allocators in real estate that are trying to compete in a different way. So our business has also changed to become more of a business focused on growth. How do you grow your investment organization? How do you continue to evolve and meet the needs of the investors?
So Jen, on the emerging managers, share with us a little bit about the dating ritual. How do they come on your radar screen? How do you vet them? What makes the right match?
Well, one thing that our team has done very, very well is that we've really worked to understand the competitive landscape. And so in every single property type, in every region of the world, both equity and debt, we've developed pretty robust competitive set analysis. And so we do a lot of our sourcing through those competitive sets, but the emerging managers will often come onto our radar because a consultant might recommend that they speak to us. They want to do future business with that particular manager, but that manager might not have the correct policies and procedures or governance structure in place, or their investment strategy is just a bit off, or terms and conditions aren't meeting the market where the market expects them to be. And so we get so many referrals from consultants and investors, and when you have one of the top global consulting firms or investors in the world saying you need to speak to this team at Alliance, it creates a nice virtuous cycle of investors and investment managers calling on us. We also,
that's a fabulous endorsement.
It really is, and we work really hard to maintain our independence in the marketplace. We're not raising capital today on behalf of any of our clients, and for us, that was very intentional when we launched the business, because we wanted to maintain open dialogue with investors and consultants that could help us understand where managers were falling short, where trends were in the industry. And so we've been really pleased with the relationships that we've been able to sustain across the table, and that's helped us to guide our clients to success.
So when you're actually talking to a potential client, you choose your clients as much as your clients can choose you. And so do you find yourself in a situation where you can't take on competing managers, or is that an issue or not an issue?
Or do you find a way?
Well, we believe that everybody is deserving of assistance, right? We haven't had too many, directly competitive mandates. And the other piece is, as Jen mentioned, these competitive sets that we're running and sharing with our clients, is that one of our goals within those comp sets is let's walk through what you believe your competitive advantages are, right? And then let's walk through what we believe your competitors' advantages might be. And sometimes we'll see, a mismatch in what our client at the time or the prospect at the time might be clarifying that they believe their competitive advantages, and we were able to challenge them with this, live comp set. And so in that example, we'll be able to extract some, new advantages, new kind of differences in strategies. So what we found is just through that exercise alone, we haven't really had any truly direct competitors within our client set to date.
Every one of our clients is pretty different. I will say what's really surprised me also is that many managers that we're working with will actually refer us to their competitors to do work with as well. So this is an interesting environment and industry that we're in. It's a very collegiate, competitive industry, but I do think that it's unique in the fact that, for the most part, most managers want their peers to succeed as well. And so a lot of times, we might be working with an industrial operator and they'll refer another CEO to our business when they're having, intellectual dialogue about how they've evolved their business. And so that's been really helpful when we're attracting clients as well.
Going back to your example of the introduction by a consultant. So you have that first meeting with the potential candidate, the manager. Do you find that managers are generally open to your playbook and your suggestions? Are they ready to listen and learn?
I think for the most part, when we kind of reflect on how we've serviced our clients historically, I think it's very common for a manager to come in with what they believe the problem might be. Mm-hmm. And then as, very early in the assignment, or even as we're, prospecting or getting to know one another, we'll find some other areas that we believe that we should be spending some time in, or reprioritize their needs, or bring some things to light that maybe they haven't thought of. And so that's pretty common within the assignment. So we'll send out a proposal, but 9 times out of 10, the work changes throughout the engagement.
So you are the advocate for the manager, but you're also the advocate for the LP and investor. Do you find yourself sitting in rooms with just investors to kind of collect this information and data and have those off-the-record conversations?
All the time. I mean, we as a team, we're a team of about 15 people at Alliance, and we have key stakeholders that we follow in the industry. And one of the largest set of key stakeholders across our business are the global investor base. And so we try to have routine conversations with these groups. We attend and we're very actively involved across many different associations that put us in the same room as the investors. And keep in mind, Heather and I both came from a place where we were the trusted advisor to the investor. That was the job that we had. We were in their board meetings with them in good times and in bad. We had to understand their portfolios from the inside out. And so those calls are really fun to make today. Hey, catching up with one of our former clients. Some of those clients when I was at Townsend, I worked with for 17 years. And so they're trusted relationships. When you kind of go to battle with a CIO or a board, it creates a nice camaraderie. And so we very much respect the value and integrity of those relationships. I think it's one of the reasons why we chose not to raise capital in the marketplace. We didn't want to feel like we were pressuring investors to take our calls. And about half of our clients will work with a third-party marketing agency or a placement agent, and half of them will be building their own internal distribution teams. But that dialogue with investors is really important to how we shape our business. All of the content that you see coming out of our blogs or our videos, all of that content is a question that we were asked by an investor to address. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, we don't have enough clarity on this particular topic. Would you guys mind putting some messaging out to market? A great example of that is one of our team members, Baylor, just co-authored a 2-part piece with Texas teachers on entity level investment that was published in the PREA Quarterly. So that type of relationship that we have with the investors is really important to our business.
This episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch is sponsored in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York. Life at Pearl House shines brightly. It's where smart design meets condominium quality finishes. Pearl House, the beauty of smart living.
Commercial real estate is evolving, bringing new challenges and new opportunities. At Commonwealth Land Title National Commercial Services New York, we provide trusted guidance, deep commercial experience, and seamless coordination on complex transactions grounded in local insight and backed by national resources. Commonwealth Land Title, NCS New York, trusted to move your most complex transactions forward.
Okay, so let's go back to Alliance Global Advisors, because you just said you have 15 people on staff, or you have a company of 15 people. When you launched this April 1st, 2020, what did you envision? What were your thought process? How did you come to say, you know what, we need to launch Alliance Global Advisors now? And did you envision the success and the growth that you've had so far?
When we first launched, we really just tried to focus on the emerging managers. We felt that those were the ones that were in need of so much help. And that's when Jen referenced this playbook, right? And it's typically, there's quite a bit of these, operators or, managers that had, fund one, a small fund one, a smaller fund two, and they were looking to diversify their capital base and grow their organization. So that was kind of the typical manager that we thought we would be servicing in the beginning. And, I think just with COVID occurring and a lot of these senior management team members had a little bit more thinking time for a little bit of a period. And so we got a lot of calls, inbound calls of saying, hey, Heather and Jen, help me understand what am I missing in my organization? What gaps do I not have some foresight on? If I want to take my organization from a fund one or fund two, but I'd at some point to be able to raise $750 to $1 billion, help me understand where my major challenges are going to rise. And so that started attracting a different type of manager, not just a fund one or a fund two manager. And then now that we're, spending a lot of time in this GP staking business, OpCo investing, we've got several clients that are coming to us now, not just to raise another fund product, but actually to position themselves for a potential sale and for their own organization. So we've been spending quite a bit of time there as well.
So you're dealing with succession planning as well,
absolutely,
which is a big issue in the industry right now. And how are you advising certain companies about that?
Yeah,
it's sensitive, I know.
It's sensitive, and I think it has resulted in a lot of the M&A activity that we've seen in the marketplace. I think when it comes to succession planning in an investment management organization, it's so multifaceted. It has to be a pre-planned process that spans 7 to 10 years, to be honest with you. And if you get to the point where the founder of your firm and a founder-led organization owns 100% of the equity in the organization and hasn't thought about that, that's when we see a lot of growth capital coming into organizations to take down that partner and maybe diversify it across the partner base. But succession planning is definitely part of what we do. We help executive management teams identify, for every position that's of influence within an investment management organization, another individual that could provide some continuity if anything were to happen. And we recommend different structures when it comes to compensation. We launched a few years ago, about 2 years ago, Alliance Search Partners. So we are doing some placement of executives, but we're also working on things like compensation studies for the industry. And that all evolved because, first of all, our team has collectively a great network of humans that we know in the industry. And so we were doing a lot of placement naturally. And Heather and I thought, well, this could be a good business opportunity, but a lot of it was because of the succession planning work that we're doing. Everything from policy related to succession planning.
That's a
through
full-service succession planning approach. That's impressive.
It is. And I think the launch of the executive search function that is run by a woman, her name's Stacy Schiffman in our business. It's really interesting because coupled with our team and our knowledge of what our clients' needs are across their entire platform, it really helps to identify the right people to come on board to take on some of those challenges or help managers capitalize on opportunities. So it's a unique model that we have in
This
search.
is so impressive what you've built out in a relatively short period. But I'd like to go back to the launch, because there will be viewers who are thinking, how can I do what Heather and Jen did? What was the planning? You two had obviously bonded and clicked. You started noodling this around. Talk to us about how it came to be.
Yeah, like 6 to 8 months beforehand, there had to be a longer gestation period.
Well,
How did it happen?
We all want to know.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just share with you kind of the evolution of that. So Heather had left the organization that she was working with previous to launching an advisory platform. And she was advising a manager that I happened to know very well, and I recommended speak with Heather. And they brought her on board to do some consulting work. And she and I connected a few months after that consulting work began, and Heather said, I think there's more opportunity here.
Well, there was at that point, there was 4 or 5 other managers that were coming directly to me and just said, look, I know you're working with this manager. We could also use some assistance. And so, I'd call Jen and just, let's kind of kick around some ideas. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Or, her clients were the LPs at that point in time. So I'd love to hear, how you think your client would have a view on this, or help me with your perspective on this. And so just, that kind of trading of ideas and challenging each other always came pretty natural to us. I think we've had a very healthy partnership from the beginning. But that kind of the evolution of the business really came from the managers were calling. It was an inbound request. Clearly there was some assistance that was needed in the marketplace.
That's a tough position to be in.
And so,
But you have to be wired to be thinking of launching your own shingle, launching Alliance. You have to be wired to that, and one of you has to broach that delicate subject. Do you think we want to do this?
Yeah, well, there was a phone call that was made, around the middle of March, and Jen and I had already kind of created our business plan. We had our launch date of April 1st. We were ready to go. And then middle of March, I was actually down in the BVI's, and Jen calls me and she's like, we have a serious problem here in the States.
She's on vacation before we launch our business on a sailboat. And I said, something's happening in the US. You're gonna have to figure out, first of all, if you can get home, but second, if our launch should go off as planned, because it was also, the global health pandemic quickly became a really challenging space mentally for a lot of people. It was frightening for a lot of people, and here we were.
The unknown
the unknown was terrifying, and here we were launching with boldness and excitement into this environment. So we're like, is it tone deaf to launch a business at this particular time? And I had Townsend had already known that I was leaving. I gave them more than 6 months notice.
So it was not a surprise to them?
It was not a surprise to them. We had been through a couple of organizational changes at Townsend. They certainly didn't want me to leave, but they supported the concept of our business in a way that gave us some confidence.
So it wasn't a surprise to anybody?
No, it was not a surprise to anybody. Maybe the people in the market that didn't know.
Sure.
But we had a lot of pre-planning, and it was important to me that I maintain those relationships that I had with my clients and with the people that raised me in this industry. And Heather and I decided to go for it anyway.
Well, I first told Jen to call and ask for her job back because I was a little nervous.
She did. She's like, do you want to call Terry Ahern and ask him for your job back? And I said,
Wait a minute.
I think it's too late for that. I think it's a bit too late, but we went for it anyway. And we tried to do it in a way that was organic to Heather and I. We always, when we launched the business, we had one mission, and that was to create an impactful business in this industry in a positive way. We wanted to leave a positive impact on the business. So we led with that intention. We always wanted to give back. We've been very well supported in this industry, and we're really grateful for that. And we try to give back as much as possible. And I think that sentiment, coupled with launching a new business, and frankly, we didn't know how successful it would be, if it would be successful. And Heather and I had a conversation, what's the minimum amount of money you can make to survive, basically? And is it worth it to build something together? And so we had those difficult conversations before we decided to launch, but in retrospect, it was a good idea.
Well, and at that time we were both supporting, young families, right? And trying to make sure that, their lifestyles wouldn't change or be impacted too much. But so absolutely we went for it, and we had a ton of support from the marketplace and the industry. In the beginning, I don't know if we could tell, did everybody just feel badly for us, So a lot of empathy going on with this song.
We got to help these two out.
You mentioned that network that you had, and I'm just envisioning the positive calls and outreach
It was
go get them.
It was absolutely beautiful how the industry supported our launch and, continues to support us. And, the support doesn't just come from the managers, it comes from the investors, the consultants, the placement agents, other service providers. And so we've been extremely grateful for the wealth of support that we've received.
It also says a lot about you two and the organization. The support comes because you're doing a really good job.
Thank you. We try to just keep giving back. That's always been very, very important to us.
This episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch is sponsored in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York. Life at Pearl House shines brightly. It's where smart design meets condominium quality finishes. Pearl House, the beauty of smart living.
Commercial real estate is evolving, bringing new challenges and new opportunities. At Commonwealth Land Title National Commercial Services New York, we provide trusted guidance, deep commercial experience, and seamless coordination on complex transactions grounded in local insight and backed by national resources. Commonwealth Land Title, NCS New York, trusted to move your most complex transactions forward.
Can we talk about that? Because I believe you are both into mentoring. And share with us a little bit about that.
Well, we both had tremendous mentors in our career. I always speak to Michael and McGee, as she was one of the partners, the female partners of Townsend. And so she had a great, very, very strong supporting role in my career, and I know, Jen's career as well. There are several other, female leaders. We've got two extremely impressive female leaders on our board, Gloria Gill and Christina Scarlato. And so that mentorship piece has always been incredibly important to us. And you talk about going back to the framework of our organization. We started, instead of having goals for revenue or net goals, we had charitable hours goals, we had dollars of give back, and we started there. And that was where our first KPIs for our organization, and that's always been really important to us. So it's not just mentoring young professionals. It's also giving back and mentoring in the classroom, mentoring those that are kind of changing or moving around their career paths, and then obviously mentoring all of our clients and executive suites.
We have a formally structured Alliance Gives Back program. And through that program, to Heather's point about donating a certain percentage of whatever we designate to be that percentage of the business to those organizations, it allows us to do some of that mentorship. So a couple of them probably worth referencing. There's one in Southwest Florida that Heather was involved with and still is on the board of WellFit Girls. So that's a really great organization that sees women coming through, up from junior high through to high school, and sort of matches their ability in sport and recreation with mental capacity and mental health. So we both felt that was a great organization to support. We both supported the PRIA Foundation since we launched our business as well, and we donate on behalf of our advisory board to the PRIA Foundation. And one of our strongest leaders on our team, Leah Dillon, she just joined the board of Coffee Connectors, which is an organization that supports first-generation college students that are coming through a real estate track. And so all of that's really important to us. I know both Heather and I are involved with our alma maters and where we went to school, teaching in the classroom, giving back, trying to set up some scholarships and funding to the extent we can.
Where do you find the time?
We don't sleep.
Okay.
Do you sleep?
So
Sleep, what is sleep? Are we ready to talk journey yet?
one last question.
Yeah,
last question.
Sure.
What challenges do you see ahead for the industry and for your own organization?
Yeah. I mean, this industry is evolving rapidly. I think historically, maybe at least in my career timeline, when I've seen the changes that have occurred in the industry, they seem to have occurred in a slower pace, right? And then over the past 5 years, it just seems like the industry is moving at a rapid pace. And the way in which you service the investors and the way in which you work with the advisors, I think is completely evolving. And so to be trying to, for us, as we're, a service provider and we're sharing, real-time feedback, I think for us, one of the biggest challenges is to make sure that we're hyper embedded in the conversations with the LPs and really being able to give, real-time feedback and have some foresight on what we believe is to come. So.
You're right, the industry is moving so quickly and technology is helping to transform the industry as well, so we're paying close attention to that and advising our clients in that area as well. I think there are a couple other challenges facing our industry too. One is a structural shift in real estate allocations and how real estate is viewed in the context of a diversified, broad asset class program. And we have seen, coming off the most recent down cycle, a reduction in real estate allocations, and it's going to infrastructure, credit, private equity at times. And so I think that the reason for that is that real estate has not performed to the level of return that investors modeled it to in their portfolios. So I think we're in a period of structural shift where real estate allocations come down and the beneficiary of the real estate allocation is likely an infrastructure or a broader real assets portfolio. And the other structural shift is this movement from what was a historical asset allocation model to total portfolio allocation model. So we're doing some research and some work on this right now, but it's basically, an investment manager has to be positioned today to not only speak about its own area of expertise. Let's take like a multifamily operator out of the Southeast. Not only do they have to understand what the merit is for investing in that particular segment, now they have to position it relative to other property types, new alternative property types, different types of housing, seniors, student, you name it in the housing, BTR, SFR. They have to position it relative to other property types. They're outside of their segments, and now other asset classes, and now they have to position their firms versus equity or debt, and then public or private, and now real estate's competing with other asset classes across the whole portfolio. So understanding that asset allocation model for investment managers today, I think, is critically important. And not all of them, if you're embedded in one particular area of the market, that's your lane. You stay in that lane and you very rarely understand how the market moves from time to time. So I think that challenge will persist in our investment industry. But we're really excited for the new opportunities that are coming about also, and sort of how investors can position their portfolios for success with some of the lessons learned. Liquidity is another challenge. I don't think that challenge goes away until there's a really strong solution there. But we've been working with a couple of managers on structuring new investment products in that area that would improve liquidity. And so we're hopeful that these solutions will develop, but they'll continue to present some challenges for the investors and the investment managers we advise too.
Well, you're also at an inflection point for your own business. And so what are the challenges ahead for you?
For Alliance?
I mean, for me, they're very similar as to, making sure you're staying ahead. I think this OpCo level investing is part of our industry that's not going away, right? And so, the managers, and so GP and LP, OpCo investing, right? But we're no longer investing in the real estate, right? We're now investing in the teams, in the organizations, in the cultures. And so really having an understanding of how to underwrite an organization, I think is going to be really meaningful and really powerful going forward.
Something you hadn't thought about 6 years ago.
We hadn't thought about that when we designed our business. I think that the way we structured our team was to have a better understanding of platform due diligence. And so I would say that I think that was one trend that we foreshadowed in a positive way because we built our team around it. Another place, we had a little bit of catching up to do in private wealth. Most of our peers in this space also are playing catch up in private wealth. And so we brought on a gentleman to join our team that put tax-aware products on the shelf for a big wealth manager because he could help inform our business on how to structure distribution for that private wealth channel. So as the new capital sources are emerging and new investment structures and different ways of investment are changing, we have to stay on top of all of it. I think one thing that we did well was we built a lot of intellectual property when we first launched our business. So leaving an organization like Townsend or Heather's or past organizations where you have access to a lot more information, you have a bigger machine supporting the cost of that data, we, out of some fear that we would not have access to that any longer, we built a lot of content very quickly. And it's a challenge for our business to maintain and upkeep that content, but it's also a huge opportunity. The level of awareness that we can provide our investment managers using our data that we've curated for them is very powerful.
This episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch is sponsored in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York. Life at Pearl House shines brightly. It's where smart design meets condominium quality finishes. Pearl House, the beauty of smart living.
Commercial real estate is evolving, bringing new challenges and new opportunities. At Commonwealth Land Title National Commercial Services New York, we provide trusted guidance, deep commercial experience, and seamless coordination on complex transactions grounded in local insight and backed by national resources. Commonwealth Land Title, NCS New York, trusted to move your most complex transactions forward.
So Alliance branded content, that's a focus?
Yes.
So, because remember, they'll never accuse us of intellectual property.
Not a chance.
So why don't we get on to our...
Let's talk journey.
Let's talk journey, yeah.
So our viewers look at Jennifer and Heather and they have to be thinking, how do I become them? What's the path? And there's no one way to do it. So Heather, let me start with you. How do you go from playing volleyball in college to the seat that you're sitting in today?
Good question. Little bit of luck, lots of support, ton of grit, right? Quite a bit of faith, right?
By the way, were you a striker or
a little bit of both, but I was libero. I was a defensive specialist in college, so
okay.
I was.
That's really good for real estate.
Yeah, you just tuck and roll. You tuck and roll. You just keep going. So, but I think having the entrance within the Townsend model and having that exposure right up front and early on in my career, and then going through the global financial crisis, right, and being a partner with these LPs at the time, and really having a seat at the table during these tough times is, I've watched and witnessed managers, making really poor decisions, right? I have been, and Jen as well, obviously, but been in the boardrooms where, retired teachers, retired firefighters are hysterically crying as they're watching their portfolio, be vanished, right, overnight. And to work alongside them and to build it back up and to constantly be pushing the managers to do the right thing. There was, I think, that piece that was always instilled in me, like early on in my career, that like our industry just deserves better, right? And so then to be able to create that alongside, an incredible partner and to build this, immaculate team, it's like for me, I know that I was able to get here because of the support we've had, the team that we've been able to build, and the incredible partnership and friendship that I've had with Jen through it all.
Jen?
I think that there's a lot of success that and lessons learned in building your own personal identity too. So both Heather and I benefited from a really strong brand identity with Townsend. Yeah. And there wasn't an investment manager in the world that didn't want to talk to Townsend. And so we knew that that opened doors for us in a way that was really special. And I don't think we ever lost sight of that fact either, that, not everybody's your friend when you walk out those doors. And for me, I moved from Cleveland, Ohio, Townsend's headquarters, to San Francisco, where I led their advisory practice eventually after Michaelyn McGee, who Heather mentioned earlier, after she retired. And when I moved out there, I knew nobody. I only knew the people that I worked with and the investors that I worked for. And so I had to build my own professional community there. In Cleveland, I had a lot of support and a lot of peers and a lot of friends from college that were still kind of roaming around the Ohio area. But in San Francisco, I didn't know anybody. And
but
so
you were at the same company, but in different locations, so it's almost like starting fresh.
Starting fresh, and it was a small satellite office, as was Denver, where Heather was. And so one of the important things that I think I did, and it wasn't by design, it was just because I was lonely and didn't know anybody there, we started, happy hours in San Francisco after work, getting a group of people together, going out and having a couple of drinks and having a dialogue about what's going on in the industry. And I built my own personal network through that. And that's something that carries forward with you when you leave a strong brand and you try to build your own. Are you a good human? Mm-hmm. Are you somebody that somebody else wants to go out and have a drink with or have a dinner with?
People want to do business with people they want to do business with.
Yeah, right? And it's really important that you're a good human being. And it turns out people want to support other good humans, right? Yeah. It's our number one requirement for hiring on our team. Are you a good human being? And so that personal brand building and kind of the courage to do that, I think, was also part of, what I would recommend to anybody. Don't hang hitch your wagon to a star that's not your own without also building your own presence. And so that's, I think, really helped both of us.
Well said. So Mitch, where are we now?
I think we're closing in on the lightning round.
Oh yeah.
We always close each session with our wonderful guests with a lightning round. Quick questions, looking for quick answers to get a little further insight into you.
Let's do it.
Shall we kick it off?
Kick it off.
Okay. Sailing or kiteboarding?
Kiteboarding.
Sailing.
Wow. Okay.
She married a sailor, so.
Jen, wine or champagne?
Champagne.
And why?
I love the art of saberage.
There we go.
And I like some bubbles too.
You like bubbles, okay.
Movie watching.
Oh.
Popcorn or candy?
Neither.
Okay. Wow. Don't tell me carrots or cucumbers. No celery.
I don't have a ton of time to watch movies these days.
I hear you. On a plane, maybe on a plane.
That's fair.
Unless you're studying for the meeting you're going to.
Netflix or Prime?
Ooh, Netflix.
Yeah.
And we'll close with Ferris wheel or merry-go-round?
Oh, Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel.
Okay.
All right. Well.
Awesome. Well,
Love
we can't
those.
thank you enough for spending time with us today.
Heather Fernstrom, Jennifer Stevens, thank you for joining us on Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love that.
This episode of Elevator Pitch with Jonathan and Mitch was made possible in part by Pearl House, a Van Barton Group holding, and by Commonwealth Land Title NCS New York.